Hey, today we're continuing our series, Tension. The tension is good. The tension is good. Now, since we began this series, I have been looking at the word a little bit differently because I'm sort of looking at it from the sense of tension. You know, tension is good because it forces us to make choices and to choose. It puts us in positions where we decide, who we are becoming and who we long to be in the life that God longs for us to live. And last week we talked about tension in time and how, because we have so many activities and have to make so many decisions and our time is so limited, that it puts us in positions that we have to decide how to use our time. And we found out that the really only way to bring all these decisions in line is if we seek God's will and allow us God to order our lives. The tension is good with time. But today we're talking about the tension is good investing your life. I want to know, what in this world are you investing your life in? Who or what are you taking your time, your effort, and energies to invest who you are and give all yourself to? As the sun rises each morning, the dawn comes upon us and the day presents itself, as you step into the day, who or what are you investing yourself, your life? And because you're either investing your life for God or you're living life in such a way that you're giving very little thought to God in your life. It's like two students going to college. A young man goes to college because he wants a decent job. He wants a standard of living. And he realizes the only way he can achieve that standard of living is if he goes to college and does well in college. So he gives all his effort and time and energy to go to college to do well for him so that he could be blessed by his going to college. It's all about him and what life can bring to him. But then another student, a young lady, goes to college because she senses that God is working in her life, that there's something God will call her to do. And so she wants to take the talents and the gifts and the skills that God has given her and develop them for Him, to be used by Him. And she doesn't know what it is God has in store for her yet, but she knows that there's something there that God needs done that only she can do. And so she gives her time, efforts, and talents to going to college for God and then waiting for God to lead her and guide her in her life. And the tension that results from how we invest our lives is good because it forces us to look at our lives and discern, are we really investing our lives for ourselves, or are we investing our lives for God? And if God is even a remote part of this discussion, the question becomes, well then, how do we live our lives in such a way that we have an even greater passion to devote and invest our lives for God? Growing up, I'll tell you what, I didn't have a clue. When I was a young kid in high school, I didn't have a clue. I'll be honest with you, I was the good son. I was the good son. I'm not trying to brag or anything. It just that's who I was. And I used my talents. I made the grades. I played the sports. I was on the student organizations. I did all these things, and I love to hear people talk about me, man. Scott, you're awesome, man. That was a great shot you made. And I love the accolades and the compliments. And I love to see my name in our hometown newspaper, Zephyr Hills, Florida, Zephyr Hills News. Whatever that looked like. And no thought in my life of living my life for anything really other than myself. And maybe this is you. Maybe you're living your life for what others will say about you, that you're a wonderful young man, you're a wonderful woman. You're living a good life. You're a stellar individual. Man, you're a great father, a great husband, a great wife, a great son, a great daughter. Or maybe you're living life for reasons you don't fully, completely understand. And I want you to understand those are really good reasons. But they're not the best reason. Because when it's all said and done, there's only one reason that will really matter for investing our lives. There's a poem that goes, only one life will soon be past. Only what's done for Christ will last. And only those things that are done for Jesus, for God, for Christ, will really matter in the end. Well, how do we get there, though? How do we live our lives so that we see our lives as investments for God that will last? You know, in our passage today, Jesus has been talking to his disciples about the end times, about what's going to be happening, and looking for signs and sort of keep their eyes open, because no man knows the hour or the day when God will bring history to a close. But then he talks about them using their talents in order to get ready for that final time. In the book of Matthew, chapter 25, verse 14. Matthew chapter 25, verse 14. He said, in getting ready, it's sort of like this. He said, again, it will be like a man going on a journey, who called his servants and entrusted his property to them. To one he gave 5 talents of money, to another 2 talents, and to another 1 talent, each according to his ability. Then he went on his journey. And the man who had received the 5 talents went at once and put his money to work and gained 5 more. So also the one with 2 talents gained 2 more, but the one man who had received the 1 talent went off, dug a hole in the ground, and hid his master's money. You know, what is a talent anyway? You know, a talent is a sum of money, maybe roughly $1,000 in today's currency, but even more than what it actually is what it represents. For in this parable, in this story, the talents represents the gifts and the abilities of the individuals that Jesus is talking about. Now, some neat things about talents. First, they all belong to God. All our talents come from God. Notice it says, to one he gave 5 talents, to another 2 talents, to another 1 talent. To one he gave 5 talents, to another 2 talents, he gave 2 talents, and to a third he gave 1 talent. And the only reason these servants have any talents at all, you know, gifts, abilities to be used for their master, is because the master gave them to them. If the master had not given them anything, they would have no talents. Just as the talents and abilities that we have been given to us by God. All that we have, all that we bring to the table of life, have been given to us by God. But not only did he give his servants talents, bestow them upon them, he entrusted them with his property. That's a powerful word, entrusted. It literally means he gave them the power to use. He took the talents that he had that were his and gave them to his servants, and then he put trust into them to use them for himself, to use them for his glory, to use them for the master. He entrusted them. Just as God trusts us to use our talents for him. And the master gave out different amounts of talents to the servants. To one he gave 5, to another 2, to another 1, just according to their ability, just as he gives us talents. Different talents, different amounts, different abilities, different things we can and cannot do. And he gives them to us with open arms. But finally, and I think perhaps most importantly, implicit in this story is that he went on a journey, but it was not going to be forever. He would be coming back home. He would be returning. And when he returned, he would want to know what his talents that he had given to his servants were used for. So all of our talents that have ever been given to humanity, to any person in all the world, at any time, have come from God. And then when there will come a time when God will want to know what we did with the talents, and he will personally reward for the talents well used. Verse 19. And after a long time, the master of those servants returned and settled accounts with them. The man who had received the 5 talents brought the other 5. Master, he said, you entrusted me with 5 talents. See, I have gained 5 more. And his master replied, well done, good and faithful servant. You have been faithful with a few things. I will put you in charge of many things. Come and share in your master's happiness. And the man with the 2 talents also came. Master, he said, you entrusted me with 2 talents, and I have gained 2 more. And his master replied, well done, good and faithful servant. You have been faithful with a few things. I will put you in charge of many things. Come and share in your master's happiness. God rewards for talents well used. And he rewards with more trust. You know, the 2 servants who are working and investing their talents, they invest them and work them for the exact same reason. Notice, hear the words, you entrusted me. You gave me. You gave to me these talents, and with the understanding that you give me the power to use them, and you trusted me to use them. And by giving them talents, the master puts his trust in them to use their abilities for him. Now, if God didn't trust us, if he didn't trust you, he would not have given you any talents. He trusts us with the talents that he gives us. And because God has given you talents, you know that you're trusted by God. And there's something incredibly empowering when another person trusts us, isn't there? I know with us, Carol and myself, Marissa, our oldest daughter, and her husband, we help watch Wesley and Lacey, our grandchildren, while Marissa works as a nurse and Vince works. And they bring them over to our home. And they trust us with Wesley and Lacey. They trust that we will take care of them. They trust that we will feed them. They trust that we will put them to bed at a reasonable hour. They trust that we will love them. And they trust that we will do those things that would be a benefit in their young lives. I guess in every sense of the word, while we have these 2 young lives with us, we are responsible, and they have entrusted us with their lives. And so Carol and I go above and beyond what is necessary, what is to make sure that we are worthy of the trust that has been put within us. And we do our best to care for these little ones and try not to spoil them too much. But they have entrusted us, and we want to prove that we are worthy of their trust. How empowering is that? And it's even more empowering to realize that as human beings, we have been entrusted with the gifts and talents that God has given to us. And God rewards with more trust, with more opportunities. He says, you have been faithful in a few things. I will put you in charge of many things. The reward for work well done is more work. Isn't that awesome? You know, isn't that great? The reward for work well done is more work. He doesn't say, hey, you've done a great job, high five, bring it on in, kick back, take it easy, life's good. And, he says, man, you've done such an awesome job. I'm going to give you an opportunities to do even more awesome things and greater tasks and greater challenges and more opportunities to use their talents for their master. There's nothing more exciting to me as a minister. As I am among people and I see their passion for doing a ministry for God. And as they talk about what they're doing, I see their eyes light up and their voices change and their excitement that they can't wait. And the more they involve in this ministry, the more excited they get about it. I showed the picture of this young man, John and his wife Jan. They are going to India. And I went up and talked to him afterwards. I said, man, you did a great job at that ceremony. He spoke of God and what God would do in Becca and Amin's life and what he had planned for them, and just smiled and really spiritual to the whole event. And I went up and just talked to him, and he said, yeah, we're getting ready to go to India. I said, man, you're crazy. He said, yeah, we are. And I said, yes, you are. You're crazy for Jesus going over to India. I said, what do you do? He said, well, I'm an engineer in Peoria. He said, and Jan, she does what's the Christian healthcare system. And I said, you're walking away from all that? He says, yes, we are. I said, how are you going to pay for all this? He said, we have to raise our own funding. I said, man, that's hard. He said, yeah, that's why it's taken us 2 years to get here, because we've had to raise our own funding, trying to get support to go over to India. And I said, what are you going to do when you get there? And he began to tell me of all the things they're going to do and the people we're going to work with. And the more he talked about it, the more excited he got, and the more his eyes lit up. And Jan, she chimed in, and I could tell I was sitting in the presence of a young man and young woman who got a sense that God had gotten a hold of their lives, and they were getting ready to be used by God to do something amazing in the life of the men and women in India. Man, he was going to give them more opportunities to live and use their talents for his kingdom. And then we find God's reward for using talents well is that we experience the master's happiness. He says, come and share your master's happiness. You experience more work, more trust, and now more joy. You know, see, that's what happens in this sharing of trust. The master entrusts his servants with their gifts and talents. The servants, out of their master's trust, use their gifts and talents for the master. The master is pleased with the servants. The servants are filled with pleasure of the master, and there's great sense of joy that they are doing well. Their lives are aligning exactly with what the master would have for them. You know, all of you have heard me say, there's great joy in doing that for which you've been created to do. And when you find that what you've been created to do, you experience the joy. And it just overflows to everyone who comes in contact with you. You know, all talents come from God. God rewards for talents well used, but then we find the consequences of talents that are wasted. Verse 24. Then the man who had received the 1 talent came. Master, he said, I knew that you are a hard man, harvesting where you have not sown and gathering where you have not scattered. So I went out. I was afraid and went out and hid your talent in the ground. See, here's what belongs to you. His master replied, you wicked and lazy servant. So you knew that I harvest where I have not sown and gather where I have not scattered seed. Well then, you should have put my money on deposit with the bankers. At least that, so when I returned, I would have received it back with interest. Take the talent from him and give it to the one who has the 10 talents. For everyone who has will be given more, and he will have an abundance. And whoever does not have, even what he has will be taken from him. And throw the worthless servant outside into the darkness where there will be weeping and gnashing of teeth. The man who is punished is the man who did not even try to use his talent. You know, he did not lose his talent. He just did not use it. He hid it. He wasted it. I think it would have been better for him if he had taken his talent and at least tried to do something with it and lost it, rather than doing nothing with it at all for the master. And those individuals who hide their talents are those individuals who live and exist in this world not using their talents for God. And there are a lot of talented people in the world, doing a lot of amazing things. And I'm thankful for what these amazing people do and the talents that are being used, because they make life easier on me and easier on you and in our society and in our world. But unless their talents are being used for God in the way that God wants them used, in the way God directs them to be used, then no matter what we accomplish, no matter what we achieve, in the end, it really won't matter that much. Only one life will soon be past. Only what's done for Jesus Christ will last. The people who use their talents for God and the people who use their talents choose not to use them for God. But what about those people who start out using their talents for God but then stop? Or those people who start using their talents for God, then stop and start using them again? Or what about those people who for years don't use their talents for God, but then all of a sudden they come to God, give their life to Jesus, and begin using talents for God? What about those people? What about them? Well, to the prodigal son, who wasted his entire inheritance in riotous living, when he turned back to the Father and began his journey back, Dad said, "Welcome home, son. Welcome home." And to the thief who hung beside Jesus on his cross, when with his last dying breath he turned to Jesus, Jesus said to him, "Today you will be with me in paradise." You see, greater than when we begin to use our talents for God, even greater than if we begin to use them and don't use them and then use them again. So we falter on the journey. Even greater than that is if we come to the end, we finish our lives and fall into the arms of God and share in His eternal happiness. Right now, we're going to give you a moment to fall into the arms of God. That wherever you're at on your spiritual journey today, to move forward in that. And maybe that movement for you is to move from unbelief to belief, from non-faith to faith, from using your talents for yourself to using your talents for God. And maybe that today is the decision for you to become a Jesus follower. Or maybe today is a day for you to rededicate your life. To recommit yourself to what God has called you and created you to do, to be in this world. To say, "God, I give you my gifts and talents. I give you all that I am. I give them more fully, completely to you. I want to follow you with all that I am as best as I can as you give me grace and mercy." And so maybe today, this Sunday of decisions, this Sunday of rededication. Or maybe this Sunday is the day of just joining our church family, our community. Man, love's found you here. And you feel God tugging on your heart and say, "Hey, I don't know what God's doing here exactly. I don't know where this journey with this family is going to take me, but I want to be part of that journey. I want to live my gifts and talents for God here in this space with these people who are seeking Him and desiring to follow Him." This is Decision Sunday, and this is the moment of decision for you. I'm going to ask, if you will, just bow your heads and close your eyes. You know, whatever God is laying on your heart to do right now, to come forward and just take my hand, and we'll pray. We'll pray and affirm your decision to follow God through His Son Jesus.